everybody, Alexander Thompson here with the Minimalist Entrepreneur. Now when it comes to no-code, most of the tools that we see in the market both provides front-end and back-end. Think about like Bubble and Adalo having such services. Now this is great for initial validation, but as you get traction and want to scale, it is better to go with a sort of focused, robust database and backend structure. And we do have solutions for this out there. Think about Xano, Backendless and Firebase, all providing different ways of no-code backend solutions. Now these are the most common tools in the market today, but we are seeing some very interesting new tools coming out. And that is the point with this video. We're going to be looking at Canonic and Superbase, two very interesting new no-code backend tools that we're going to be looking at their website, their pricing, the features and the builders that they are providing. So let's get started. Okay, so we are starting with Canonic as the first tool to look at. Now again, Canonic, it is sort of a no-code type, low-code interface when it comes to creating, managing and deploying your backend. Now it is serverless, which just means that you don't handle the server and the backend yourself. But again, they take care of all of that, including as you scale. So moving down, we see that we already have 1,500 creators using this one and multiple API, about 900 plus APIs deployed. And with this platform, again, it's work as a backend, and with it you can build again web application, mobile applications, as well as microservices if that's of interest. So with Canonic, it's very, very flexible, I would say. So you can create the database within Canonic to take care of all of this, or you can even link to existing databases like Airtable, Google Sheet, and so on. So that's really, really nice. And then again, you don't need to actually be able to write code. You can use the no-code type builder to add the business logic, which again, we're going to go into more detail, so I don't want to show too much. And then lastly, you can integrate with other services like Slack if you want to notify a channel in there. You can send thank you email. You can integrate with HubSpot. So there's plenty of complex workflows that you can create with Canonic. Now, what is also to be mentioned with Canonic is that it is very interesting that it auto-generates both REST and GraphQL APIs for you. This is not something I've seen anywhere, to be honest. So REST API is what you're probably most familiar with. It's the most common way of connecting with a backend, especially with no code. But they even support GraphQL, which is more of a newer technology of a way of querying data in a much more, let's say, neat way. And looking at also how it works, here you have an idea of all the stuff they take care of. So authentication, database, webhook, the whole continuous integration development, again, REST and GraphQL. So they take care of all of that. And then you will have to do the front end. So they only provide the back end with Canonic. So you definitely have to choose front end to do this. Now, if you see here, this is much more development focused, right? So these are all development languages like React, Angular, but you can also use their REST API endpoint to integrate with your no-code solution if you like. So if you look at the pricing, first of all, they have a very good free pricing, I would say, even compared to the other no-code solutions we see out there. For $0 a month, right, you can get 5,000 requests per day, which is pretty great, right? 5,000 requests with a no-code solution, even if you get traction, you might not even hit the 5,000 limit. So that's a really, really, I think, a good package for you. And 5,000 CMS entries. But for all of this for free, I think that's still quite amazing. Even asset storage is 25 gigabytes, which is, I think, quite impressive compared to what I've seen in other places. And again, for $15 a month, it will pretty much cover most of your cases with 25,000 requests per day. And again, all this unlimited with integrations, custom APIs. So you get a lot of stuff for $15 only. So if you look at other no-code backend builders like Xano and Backendless, I think this is a very competitive pricing that they offer. And of course, you can also go towards the team, which is $99 a month or $249 a month. But then we look at a lot more requests. So of course, if you're building an application with a ton of users, like a social media approach, well, then you will quite quickly go in this direction. But for most other, let's say, micro SaaS or marketplace solution, then you will probably be within the individual package for a while. All right, so let's look inside the builder, which I think is the most coolest part of Canonic. Here is the Canonic visual builder. You have here, first of all, a dashboard with a welcome message where you can then do a tutorial. And I gotta say, the tutorial that they offer is by far the best I've ever seen when it comes to no-code backend builders. I tried different no-code backend builders, and I think for me, Canonic is the most intuitive, great UI and the easiest to create, manage, and deploy. So really, really cool. I'm a big fan of Canonic, to be honest, just from trying it out. And in here you have the dashboard, you have the different projects that you have. You have a marketplace as well with the different integrations for I think this is more for the webhook direction. And then you have the tutorials down here. For example, you can do something like create a backend like Twitter. You have an estimate time, 10 minutes, and see how it works. So for example, here we have the Twitter tutorial, and it's just amazing. I really, really like the tutorial because it interactively shows you really like step by step how to set it up. And for example, here it says, okay, name the table tweets. So this is the table that I'm trying to create. I follow it, I click enter, then it tells me, okay, now we have to add a field. So if you want to add a field to this table, you click this plus button, where you can then create the field. It tells me created by. So it's really simple, and it's made for, I think, all type of people. While I think for Xano and Backendless, it's a little bit more, it's definitely more difficult, and the learning curve is greater just because of the way it looks, the UI and the tutorials. I just don't feel are the same sort of level as Canonic. So now, just to quickly show you, if you want to create your own one, you open into your projects, you go to My Projects, and then you can select what you're trying to do. I'm actually not sure whether this will in any way help you, or is it just more for their own sake to understand. Yeah, and then you can then choose to create a database from scratch with Canonic. Do you want to import it, the content, the data, or do you want to link it to another database like we saw, whether that is Airtable or MongoDB or something else? Then you choose where you want the region of your database. You can only choose between the US and India. So not too many options here, but again, I think in most cases it should be fine. And now you're inside what you saw before as well with Twitter. You have just a table here with list of. You have the default things like ID, created ad, as well as updated ad. And then you could just say whatever you want to call it. What do you want to create? Toggle, files, images, time. You can do a picker, right? So if you have a certain type of values that you want to list out, like let's say the status or progress of something like a card. You have date. So you just keep adding different fields to this specific table. So for example, you want to add, let's just call a title here. And if you want to do the picker, for example, we can call it status. And then you can see whether it's a list or standalone. And you can also, of course, create as many tables as you want, depending on the plan. So here you can take test 2, and then you can have different fields here. Let's just call it whatever description. Then you just click deploy. So here you have the production URL that you probably want to call. So now with the deployment done, you can then see, okay, so in the graph section on the left-hand side, this is where you start. So this is where you create the relationships, the fields that you want, and so on. And once you've deployed this logic, you can then go to the CMS, and then you can see here what is the actual data within each of these tables. So you could, for example, add a new entrance if you wanted to. So I only have title in this database. But imagine like if you have users, right, you will see a list of all the data that has been generated from their interactions with your backend. And then the third step is, of course, your API. So here you have the different endpoints already being created by Canonic for test 2, as well as for this table, where you then can make different requests like get the data, change the data, delete the data, and such. And then lastly, we have the docs, which is literally auto-generated documentation based off your relationships that you created in the graph, as well as the endpoints that have been generated for the API. If you again want to use GraphQL or REST. Okay, so looking at Supabase, Supabase is an open source alternative to Firebase. So that pretty much sums up Supabase to some extent. It offers very, very similar features like what Firebase is doing. So you have database, you have authentication, the APIs and storage and such. So it's really much trying to, I think, target Firebase users in this case. The only thing that is not there yet is the functions, I guess, where similarly like Google, you have something called Google Cloud Functions, where you can write custom code to do different kind of jobs or logic without the need of deploying or scaling a service. If you're a developer already doing front end, then probably Supabase is a great substitute potentially. Now, if you don't know coding at all, I have a feeling that Canonic is just a bit easier from what I've seen. Although you do have sort of a table editor like Airtable Google Sheet approach. So here you can do it in a no-code approach. But so if you look at Supabase, they have a free plan as well, which is really great, I guess, to get started, to experiment, and if it's a hobby project. And with this, you get your database, you have unlimited API requests in this case, and you have a data space of up to 500 megabytes. So not so much in space, but you do have unlimited API requests, which is different from Canonic. Also, you have certain limitations on users, so you can have 10,000 users, but then again, 10,000 users on a free plan, I think that's fine. And it comes with, again, some different things here if you scroll down. But for a free plan, I think it's pretty solid. And then from then on, we go from $25 per month, where of course you have more data. You can have up to 100,000 users, and you have also a lot more storage total, as you can see here. Now, if you scale beyond that, then it's more pay as you go, where you can then see $0.125 per gigabyte, as well as transfer limits of $0.09 per gigabyte. So this is the look and feel when you essentially have your Visual Builder dashboard. So you have your projects, all projects, organization, if that's also access to its guides and API reference. So in this case, we can start a new project, which is just based on my name. Test project. Extremely good password. And here you can choose different regions. So Canonic doesn't have so many, but with them you can pretty much do across North America. You have Europe as well as Asia and South America as well, and Sydney. So yeah, pretty much anywhere you want. We just choose London for whatever reason. So now it's being generated, the project setup. So you can see different things like your API keys, if that's important, your secret configuration and such, as well as the client library. So yeah, then you have your test project set up after a few minutes. And then here you see different things, such as the database, you have the authentication and the storage. So you can try different things like table editor, which then brings you to the next part, which is on the left-hand side, the table editor. And then you can create a new table, just say tests. And here you can add the different columns. Also, you can import data via spreadsheet. And you can choose nicely as well what type of data it is, timestamp, is it Boolean, is it JSON? So I think quite a pretty setup as well here. As well as setting which one is the primary. Again, you can add multiple columns as you prefer. Then if you go down, you then have the authentication. So here you will then see the users that have authenticated with their details like last sign-in, the email, the user UID and such. And it offers if you go down, you also have a few templates. If you're using SMS, which is quite interesting. The reset password, nice to have that. Magic link, so in case you base it on the email URL, or as well as inviting users. So you have different things here. Then if you go down, you then have the storage, where you can then have your data. Then if you go down one more, you then have the SQL. So this is where if you want to, write scripts, you can then write scripts for different things, which is quite interesting. Do you want to look up some information in a table? Do you want to create a table? Do you want to add column? It depends on what you want to do. And then down here you have the actual database. So up here is more the editor of your table. Down here you'll see the information then with the database that you have in place, as well as the roles. And then if you go down, you have then the API, where it gives you more information regarding the setup here with the introduction, the authentication, the user management. So that was Canonic and Supabase, two interesting new backend no-code builders. Now I think they both are very impressive. Having said that, I would say my personal preference is Canonic. Simply Canonic for me is very, very easy to get started. The learning curve is very low from what I've seen. And even though it's a low-code tool, I think as a non-developer, it's relatively straightforward for even me to use. And I would even go as far as saying that out of all the backend no-code builders, for the next project that I'm doing, I would probably choose Canonic as my backend. So very, very impressed by it. I think Canonic will become an increasingly important no-code backend builder in this year and in the coming years. So very, very impressed. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. And let me know below in the comment section. Do you have any questions? Have you used these tools before? Or do you recommend some other tools?